How dare you? My mother's voice echoed across our pristine suburban lawn. Of all the houses in this city, you had to buy the one next door? I stood there, keys to my new home dangling from my fingers, watching my parents' faces turn various shades of red. My name is Emma Mitchell, and at 32, I'd just become the proud owner of 247 Maple Street, the beautiful Victorian house right next to my childhood home. The same house my parents had been trying to pressure the previous owners to sell to them for years. "This is our neighborhood," my father added, his voice cold and controlled. "We've spent 20 years building our reputation here. We can't have you and your lifestyle ruining that." By lifestyle, he meant my career as an environmental scientist and my passion for sustainable living. Apparently, my solar panels and composting plans would destroy their perfectly manicured image of suburban success. "The papers are already signed," I said calmly, though my heart was racing. "I close next week." My mother stepped closer, her designer heels sinking slightly into the freshly watered grass. "Cancel it. We'll pay whatever penalty fee. This is unacceptable, Emma." "What will people think?" I had to bite back a laugh. What would people think? They'd probably think their perfect daughter had finally done something for herself instead of living up to their artificial standards. "No," I replied, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "I'm not canceling anything. This is my house now." "Then you're no longer welcome in ours," my father said, gesturing to their immaculate colonial home next door. "If you insist on this rebellion, you can forget about Sunday dinners, holidays, everything." I looked at their house, remembering all the times I tried to please them. The medical school applications I filled out because they wanted a doctor in the family. The blind dates with sons of their country club friends. The endless criticism about my weird interest in environmental science. "Okay," I said simply. They both stared at me, clearly expecting tears or begging or something other than calm acceptance. My mother's perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. "Okay, that's all you have to say? After everything we've done for you?" "Yes, that's all. I'm moving in next week. You can either accept that or not. Your choice." As I walked back to my car, I heard my mother call out, "You'll regret this, Emma. You have no idea what you're doing." But I did know. For the first time in my life, I was doing exactly what I wanted. The next week was a blur of moving trucks and paperwork. My parents made their displeasure known by calling every authority they could think of. The homeowners association, the city council, even a lawyer friend who specialized in real estate. But everything was in order. The house was mine. My first night in my new home, I sat on the wide front porch, sipping tea and watching my parents' silhouettes move behind their curtains. They were probably on the phone with my older sister Catherine, their perfect daughter who'd followed their life plan to the letter. Medical school, marriage to a lawyer, 2 kids, and a house in the right neighborhood, conveniently far away from them. I pulled out my notebook and started sketching my plans for the property. The previous owners had maintained exactly as my parents would have wanted. Pristine lawn, traditional landscaping, nothing that would disturb the neighborhood's carefully cultivated image. But I had different ideas. The next morning, I was up early, meeting with a contractor about installing solar panels. As we discussed placement options in my front yard, I could see my mother peering through her living room window, phone pressed to her ear. By noon, the neighborhood gossip mill was in full swing. Mrs. Henderson from across the street happened to be walking her dog past my house 3 times. Each time, she slowed down to watch the contractor measuring and marking areas for the installation. My father made a point of washing his car in the driveway, shooting disapproving glances my way every few minutes. I responded by cheerfully waving each time I caught his eye, which seemed to irritate him even more. That evening, as I was unloading groceries from my hybrid car, my mother marched over, a forced smile on her face. "Emma, dear, perhaps we could discuss this situation over dinner. Your father and I have been thinking." I knew that tone. It was the same one she used when trying to talk me out of taking my dream job at the Environmental Research Center instead of applying to medical school. "Sorry, Mom," I said, not sorry at all. "I'm busy tonight. Got to finish my plans for the vegetable garden I'm putting in tomorrow." Vegetable garden. She practically choked on the words. "In the front yard?" I smiled, grabbing the last bag from my car. "Oh no, not just the front yard. I'm thinking of turning the whole property into an urban farming showcase. To demonstrate sustainable living practices. The look on her face was priceless. As she stormed back to her house, I couldn't help but think that this was just the beginning. If they thought a vegetable garden was bad, wait until they saw what else I had planned. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "Mom's hysterical. Says you're trying to turn the neighborhood into a commune. What did you do?" I sent back a simple reply. "Just getting started, sis. Just getting started." 2 weeks into my sustainable living project, as I called it, the neighborhood was buzzing with activity, though not the kind my parents were used to. Instead of their usual garden parties and wine tastings, people were stopping by to ask about my vertical garden installations and the solar panel system. The front yard transformation was the first phase of my plan. Gone was the water-hungry lawn, replaced with native plants, fruit trees, and raised vegetable beds. The contractor had finished installing the solar panels, which gleamed impressively in the sunlight. My mother's bridge club couldn't stop staring at them during their weekly gathering next door. "Did you see Mrs. Mitchell's face when the beehives arrived?" I overheard Mrs. Henderson telling another neighbor. "I thought she was going to faint." The beehives were my latest addition, placed strategically at the back of my property, fully legal according to city regulations I carefully researched. They were essential for pollinating my growing garden and producing local honey. The fact that they made my mother nervous about her precious roses was just a bonus. One morning, I was tending to my tomato plants when a group of elementary school students stopped by with their science teacher. They were studying ecosystems, and their teacher had heard about my sustainable urban farm project. "Would you mind giving us a tour?" the teacher asked enthusiastically. "This is exactly what we've been learning about." I spent the next hour showing the children around, explaining how everything worked together. The bees pollinating the plants, the compost system enriching the soil, the solar panels powering the house. Their excitement was contagious, and their questions were insightful. As the kids gathered around the beehives in their little protective suits I provided, I noticed my father watching from his study window. For a moment, I caught something in his expression that looked almost like interest before he quickly closed the curtains. That evening, a local news crew showed up. Apparently, word had spread about my urban farming project, and they wanted to do a feature on sustainable living in suburban areas. As they set up their cameras in front of my house, I saw my mother practically running to close all their curtains. "This is embarrassing," she hissed when she caught me in the driveway later. "The neighbors keep asking us about your experiment. The Hendersons' grandchildren want to start a vegetable garden. Do you have any idea what this is doing to property values?" Actually, I did. Houses in the neighborhood had started getting more attention from buyers, specifically because of the innovative green living showcase on the street. My real estate agent friend had told me property values were rising, not falling. But before I could explain this to my mother, a sleek Tesla pulled into my driveway. Out stepped Dr. Sarah Martinez, the renowned environmental scientist I'd been collaborating with on research papers for years. "Emma," she called out, embracing me warmly. "The place looks amazing. Even better than the photos you sent. The university is very excited about using your property as a case study for urban sustainability." My mother stood frozen, her mouth slightly open. Dr. Martinez was something of a celebrity in scientific circles, and her work was frequently featured in national media. Even my parents, with their limited interest in environmental issues, knew who she was. "Dr. Martinez," my mother said, her social training kicking in. "What a surprise to see you here. Oh, you must be Emma's mother. You must be so proud. Your daughter's work is revolutionizing how we think about suburban sustainable living." When she proposed this demonstration project, we knew it would be impressive, but this exceeds all expectations. I watched my mother's face as she struggled to process this information. Her daughter, the one she dismissed as a disappointment, was apparently doing something important enough to attract attention from someone like Dr. Martinez. "The university is interested in Emma's house?" she asked weakly. "Interested? We're funding part of the research. This property will be featured in several major environmental journals. In fact, that's partly why I'm here. Emma, the grant committee has reviewed your proposal for Phase 2. It's been approved." I couldn't help but smile. Phase 2 was even more ambitious than what I'd already done. It included a greenhouse, an aquaponics system, and a community education center. "Grant?" my mother interrupted. "What grant?" "The Urban Sustainability Innovation Grant," Dr. Martinez explained. Quite competitive. Emma's proposal was selected from over 300 applications. The funding is quite substantial. I watched as my mother's expression shifted from dismissal to confusion to something that looked almost like respect. She opened her mouth to say something, but at that moment my father called her from their porch, probably to rescue her from this conversation that was challenging everything they thought they knew about my lifestyle choices. As she hurried away, Dr. Martinez turned to me with a knowing smile. "Parents not quite on board with your vision?" I shrugged, looking at my thriving garden, the solar panels, and all the other changes I'd made. "They're learning. Sometimes the best way to change people's minds is to show them what's possible." "Well," she said, pulling out her tablet to show me the approved plans for Phase 2. "Wait until they see what's coming next." 6 months later, my experiment had become a local phenomenon. The greenhouse was complete, a stunning glass structure that caught the morning sun and housed an intricate aquaponics system. Fish tanks circulated water to hydroponic vegetable beds above, creating a self-sustaining ecosystem that produced both fresh fish and vegetables. The transformation was remarkable, but what really changed was the neighborhood dynamic. Every Saturday, I hosted workshops on sustainable living, drawing people from all over the city. Children would come after school to learn about composting and beekeeping. Even Mrs. Henderson had replaced part of her lawn with raised vegetable beds. My parents, however, maintained their silence, though I often caught them watching from their windows. Then came the storm. It was a massive system that knocked out power to most of the city. As houses went dark one by one, mine stayed lit, powered by my solar system and battery backup. While neighbors scrambled to save food from warming freezers, I opened my doors. "Bring your perishables," I told everyone. "I have plenty of space and power." Soon my kitchen was full of neighbors, their frozen goods safely stored in my efficient appliances. People gathered in my warm living room, charging their phones and sharing updates. Even the local emergency response team used my house as an impromptu command center, thanks to my reliable power supply. That evening, as I served hot tea made with honey from my bees and herbs from my greenhouse, I heard a hesitant knock. Opening the door, I found my parents standing there, looking uncomfortable and slightly lost. "Our power's out," my father said gruffly. "Your mother has medication that needs to be refrigerated." "Come in," I said simply, stepping aside. They entered cautiously, as if expecting to find some kind of hippie commune. Instead, they saw their neighbors comfortably gathered, children playing board games by warm LED lights, elderly Mrs. Peterson napping in my reading nook, all while the storm raged outside. "Emma," Mrs. Henderson called out, "tell your parents about how the aquaponics system works." "I was just saying how amazing it is that you're growing fresh vegetables and raising fish right here in the neighborhood." My father's head snapped up. Fish. For the first time in months, he actually looked interested rather than disapproving. I remembered how he used to love fishing when I was young, before social obligations and country club memberships took over his weekends. "Would you like to see?" I offered. He hesitated, then nodded. As I showed him the greenhouse, explaining how the system worked, I saw a glimpse of the father I remembered from my childhood. Curious, engaged, asking intelligent questions about water flow and fish species. My mother, meanwhile, had discovered that several of her friends from the Bridge Club were regular attendees at my gardening workshops. "The tomatoes Emma taught us to grow are better than anything from the store," Mrs. Peterson told her. "And did you know your daughter's been teaching cooking classes using fresh ingredients from the garden? Even my grandchildren eat vegetables now." The power outage lasted 3 days. During that time, my house became a community hub. People came together, shared resources, and helped each other in ways they never had before. And my parents got to see firsthand what I actually created, not just a sustainable living project, but a way to build real community. On the 3rd day, as power was being restored across the city, my father pulled me aside. "Emma," he said, looking slightly embarrassed, "I've been thinking, that empty corner